When I got home from work, I was so tired that all I wanted was a hot meal, some peace, and maybe some time to spend with my wife. It wasn't too much to ask, was it? Instead, there was quiet and the strong smell of something that had been heated up, or even worse, takeout again. I could see the irony in the fact that the dining table was full of shopping bags from high-end shops, each with a logo that screamed expensive. As I put down my suitcase, a wave of anger came over me. I had to bend over to help her, but she was just sitting on the couch and looking at her phone without even looking at me. "Hey," I said, trying to keep a positive attitude even though I was really mad. "What are you having for dinner?" She gave me a quick answer. I ordered something. "It will be here soon." This was happening again after a while. It had even turned into a habit. The lasagna and soups she used to make for me when I got home were long gone. The kitchen now felt like a museum. It was empty and didn't have any purpose. It wasn't just the food. The whole house looked like it was falling apart. The floors used to shine, but now looked like they hadn't been taken care of. Dishes were piled up in the sink and clothes were left out to dry. It was too late for me to fight because I was tired. As I looked at the scene, though, anger grew inside me. To make sure we had a good life, I worked hard every day, taking on extra tasks and going through stress and sleepless nights. What did I get in return? A wife who didn't seem to care about keeping the house clean or noticing how hard I worked. That night, after the take-out boxes were thrown away and the quiet between us got unbearable, I chose to bring it up. I began slowly. "Listen, we need to talk." The way she rolled her eyes barely covered how mad she was. "Now what?" "About this. About us. I need help. I can't do this by myself. I need your help." I wasn't ready for how hard her answer hit me. "When I married you, I didn't expect to be your maid or chef." "Hire someone if you want that." The words were cold and sharp, hanging in the air. My mind was jumbled. When I married her, she cared about us, our home and me. This wasn't that woman. I tried to explain and reason with her, but she waved her hand and told me she had more important things to do than fight about nonsense. As I lay in bed that night and stared at the ceiling, I became angry instead of tired. It had to get better. This lack of respect and cold indifference was something I couldn't keep coming home to. I wasn't sure how much longer I could handle the breakup of the relationship we used to have. I was still angry when I woke up the next morning after that tiring talk. Things were tense between us before I even opened my eyes. That morning, she was up and sitting in the living room with her coffee, as if nothing had happened. At the same time, I was getting ready for another hard day at work. I was going to ignore it and sweep it under the rug like I had done so many times before, but something inside me snapped. Not this time. I wasn't going to let it go. As I sat down with my coffee and looked across at her, I tried to close the gap once more. I tried to keep my tone as even as possible as I said, "Look, I don't think you understand how much this is bothering me. Every day I come home tired, and I feel like I'm the only one pulling my weight here." She didn't even blink. She kept her eyes on her phone and scrolled through it without thinking. When she finally looked up, her face showed that she was very annoyed. "Why do we need to do this again? I told you last night that I'm not your maid. I'm not here to give you everything you want." Her tone was so cold that it hit me like a slap. I tried to stay cool, but my voice got louder as I said, "That's not what I'm asking for. I want a partner, someone who can make this relationship better and who cares as much as I do." Her laugh was sour and almost mean. "Do you think this is a partnership? One thing needs to be clear. I didn't agree to be your helper. I set my own goals and live my own life. It's your choice if you don't like it." I got a chill from what she said. It wasn't just a passing comment, it was a statement. There was no question in her mind about what was going on. She had drawn a line in the sand. She wasn't ready to adapt, give in, or even recognize the sacrifices I was making. "What about us?" I asked, and my voice was getting tense. "Are you interested in what's going on with us?" She let out a big sigh, as if she was bored with the whole thing. "Listen, I already told you this. You married the wrong woman if you want a maid who does everything for you. I'm not going to change who I am because you don't think I appreciate you." That's when I realized how big the gap had grown. She didn't think of herself as part of a group. For her, marriage was a one-way street. My hard work paid for her lifestyle, and she didn't have to worry about anything. Before I went to work, I stood by the door and watched her watch TV while she was being lazy. "This can't go on," I said in a strong but low voice. "Something needs to give." As always, her answer was very sharp. "Well, I'm not going to change, so you might want to figure out what you want." Her words kept playing over and over in my head as I walked out the door. I started to really see her for who she was for the first time. I thought I was married to a different woman. This person cared more about her comfort and how she looked than the person who was standing next to her. I began to question whether staying in this marriage was worth the trouble for the first time. I couldn't concentrate at work that day. Her words kept playing over and over in my head. "I'm not changing." The fact that she was so sure of herself hurt. It wasn't just what she said. It was also how she said it, like it didn't matter what I thought. During my lunch break, I stared at my phone and looked through old pictures of us when things were good. I couldn't believe we were now where we were. I didn't know what to say, but I did know this. I couldn't keep living this way. I knew what I wanted to do by the time I got home. That meant I had to change if she wasn't going to. Stop giving her money to be irresponsible. You will no longer be taken for granted. I didn't just walk in and start a fight. I just took my laptop to the bedroom, logged into our shared accounts and left. She wasn't paying attention when I cancelled her extra credit cards because she was too busy watching a reality show. I gave her one, but told her she couldn't spend more than that. She would have to figure it out on her own if she wanted anything else. I got up earlier than normal the next morning, ready to make things different. I started getting my finances in order while she slept in like she always does. I looked over all of her bills and saw all of the unnecessary things she had bought in the last few months, like brand handbags, expensive meals, and spa appointments. It made my blood boil, but I chose not to approach her right away. Instead, I let her actions speak for themselves. She quickly became aware of the matter. Her phone was held up like it was on fire as she stormed into the room that night. "Why is my card being turned down?" "I told you so," she snapped, her voice full of smugness. I didn't even raise my eyes from the book I was reading. "I changed the limits," I said in a calm voice. "If you want to spend more, you need to start giving now." I knew exactly how she would react. Contributing? "I'm not your worker. I'm your wife. What the heck are you going through?" When she looked at me, I closed my book and wouldn't back down. "And I'm not your bank. I'm your husband. If you don't want to help with the house or the relationship, you need to start taking care of your own money." Her face turned red with anger. "To punish me for not being a good housewife for you. That is so sad." I spoke clearly and said, "No, I am setting limits. You don't want to help this company out. Okay, you can't live off of my hard work without getting back to me." Things got tense over the next few days. She clung to me, said mean things, and even tried to make me feel bad by saying things like, "I guess you don't love me anymore." But I didn't give in. When she tried to buy an expensive pair of shoes but couldn't, she got angry again and called me dominating. I didn't fall for her trick. I just told her again, if you want the finer things in life, you can earn them. The most interesting thing to me was how quickly things changed between us. She stopped hanging out with me and spent more time with her friends. I heard her on the phone yelling at me and making herself out to be the victim. I didn't care though. I wasn't doing this to get a rope with it. I did it to keep my mind clear. Like I was getting back a part of myself for the first time in years. It wasn't just about the money. I needed to get my self-respect back. I had thought that giving up my own needs in order to make her happy was part of love for a long time. But now I saw the truth. Our relationship wasn't what made her happy. It depended only on what I could give. Soon after, the first real cracks in her front started to show. I heard her trying to tell a delivery person one afternoon why her payment wasn't going through. She gave many reasons, such as a bank error or technical issues, but in the end, she had to cancel the order. She slammed the door shut, and the sound of her anger filled the house. I didn't say anything because I wanted her to deal with the truth of living with limits on her own. Over the next few days, it became clear that she was desperate. Since she couldn't go on shopping sprees anymore, she started putting on clothes she hadn't worn in years for some reason. Her favourite spa called to let her know she missed an appointment, but she didn't answer and deleted the message. It was clear to me that she wasn't going to her friends' fancy brunches when they asked her because she was too busy or under the weather. Without my money, she couldn't keep up with their way of life, and being alone was starting to bother her. When I went into the kitchen one night, she was sitting at the table and looking at her phone. Her nails were broken, even though they were always perfectly trimmed. Without any makeup on, her face looked worn out and almost beaten. I got a drink of water and waited, letting her talk first. She said all of a sudden, "I'm doing everything I can to make this work." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "But you're making it impossible." As I spoke, I leaned against the bar and took a sip of my drink. "Making what work? Your lifestyle. The one I've been single-handedly funding while you refuse to lift a finger." Her eyes got narrow and her head snapped up. "You're being cruel." I put the glass down because I was losing my cool. "No, cruel is expecting me to carry the weight of this marriage while you sit back and do nothing. Cruel is disrespecting the effort I put in every day just to keep a roof over our heads. Cruel is pretending you're a victim when all I've asked for is basic partnership." She jerked when I spoke, but she didn't answer. I saw something in her face for the first time that looked like doubt. Doubt in her decisions, in how she had been treating me, and maybe even in herself. Her mood began to change as the days went by. Even though she stopped moaning as much, we became more quiet. I once saw her trying to clean the living room, but she wasn't really giving it her all. What mattered wasn't what she did, but how she did it, hesitant, like she didn't know how to fix things. Her friends also began to notice the change. While she was away, one of them called to see if everything was okay. A friend said, "She's been so distant lately." I didn't want to or could not wait to explain. I quickly said, "She's fine," and then hung up the phone. We both knew she wasn't okay, though. The world she had made for herself, one of comfort and ease that I had paid for, was starting to fall apart. She had no one to lean on for the first time in years. One night, she broke the silence as we ate a simple meal I had made at the dinner table across from each other. She spoke slowly and said, "I've been thinking. Maybe I haven't been fair to you." The words she spoke made a small hole in the wall she had built around herself, but it was too late. I looked at her, hoping she would say more, but she didn't. Instead, she picked at her food, and the weight of what she had said made her shoulders slump. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The quiet between us said a lot. She was beginning to understand how bad her deeds were, or weren't, but it was too late. I was not sure I would ever be able to look at her the same way. Though she said a few things at dinner, things didn't change as much as I had hoped. Even though she didn't completely go back to her old ways, it felt like she was only trying half-heartedly to make things right. She would clean up every once in a while, make movements that didn't seem to mean much, and sometimes say things that made me think she felt bad about what she did. It wasn't enough, though. Not for the years I had been ignored and let down by others. And to be honest, I had lost all patience with her tries by that point. After about a week, she came up to me one night while I was reading work emails in the living room. I hadn't seen her face so soft in months. It looked almost open. She paused in the doorway and held on to the frame's edge as if she needed it to steady herself. I thought for a moment that she might have something important to say. She asked in a soft, almost shaking voice, "Can we talk?" I put my laptop down and told her to sit down. She sat on the edge of the couch and wrung her hands together as if she was scared they would switch places with hers. She looked small and unsure of herself for the first time in what seemed like a long time. She looked at the ground and said, "I've been thinking about everything you said, about how I've been treating you. And you're right, I haven't been fair to you." I didn't say anything while I watched her fight to speak. I guess I just. She stopped and took a deep breath before going on. I got comfortable. Too comfortable. I took you for granted, and I didn't realize how much it was hurting you. She looked up, and her eyes were still wet with tears. I know I've made mistakes, big ones, but I don't want to lose you. I want to fix this. I'll do better. I promise. Her words seemed to hang in the air, full of. She sounded honest for the first time in years. I might have wanted to believe her, to give her another chance to show me I was wrong. But words alone couldn't change the bigger part of me that had put up with her indifference, her sense of entitlement, and her obvious disregard for our relationship. As I looked at her, I leaned forward and put my arms on my knees. I carefully chose my words as I said, "I hear what you're saying. And I appreciate that you're finally acknowledging the damage you've done. But this isn't something you can just fix with an apology or a promise." I thought for a moment that she was going to totally break down because her face got so scrunched up. But she straightened her back instead, and her face went from sad to desperate. "I can change," she said. "I'll do whatever it takes. Please, just give me a chance." I shook my head because I could feel the decision's weight on me like a heavy blanket. You've had chances, more than I can count, and every time you chose yourself over us. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep hoping for something that isn't there. She reached out and grabbed my hand in a way that made me feel more like she was holding on than talking. She whispered, "Please," and her voice broke. "I love you." I slowly but strongly pulled my hand away. I needed your love when it mattered. When I came home exhausted and just wanted a partner. When I asked for help and you dismissed me. Love isn't enough anymore, not after everything. Finally, her tears came out and ran quietly down her cheeks. I didn't feel happy or righteous. I just felt very sad and worn out. I didn't want things to end this way, but it was the only way to move on. She stayed there for a while and quietly cried while I sat there. She got up and left the room in the end, leaving me to think alone. I could no longer love or build a life with the woman I used to be with. No amount of tears or promises could change that. After that night, there was a heavy silence in the house that wasn't at all peaceful. I was alone with my thoughts while she stayed away and went to the guest room. There were no more pleas, empty promises, or claims that things would change. I had been trying to tell her for weeks that the bridge between us was burned and couldn't be fixed. It was like she finally got it. On a Saturday morning, I woke up early. My choice was heavy, but I was determined. It was time for this part of my life to end. Walking through the quiet house, I could see the framed wedding picture on the fireplace, the decorations she chose, and the expensive furniture we never really used. They reminded me of the life we had tried to build together. It all felt empty now, like parts of a relationship that had died a long time ago. She had clothes, designer handbags, and shoes that probably cost more than my whole closet. I got a roll of trash bags and started packing her stuff. I put each one into a black bag one at a time. Everything I packed was like getting rid of a layer of weight I had been carrying for years. I stopped being mad. I wasn't angry. I was done. There was almost nothing left when she woke up. She went into the living room and rubbed her eyes. When she saw the bags by the door, she stopped moving. Her face changed from being confused to shocked and angry. "What the hell is this?" "What?" she asked, her voice rough. I said in a calm voice, "This is me moving on. I've been taking care of this relationship by myself for too long. I'm done. You need to go." I thought for a moment that she might argue because her eyes got bigger. She crossed her arms, though, and her voice dropped into a guarded sneer. "You can't just kick me out. In what direction should I go?" I told them, "That's no longer my concern. Remember that you made it clear that you don't need me. Show it. Make your own life the way you think you should have it." The way she looked at me made it seem like she didn't know the man standing in front of her. She might not have. She might not have expected me to stand up for myself in a way for the first time in years. She started to lose faith, so she tried one more time. She spoke less loudly and almost begged, "I can change. This can be fixed." I turned my head away. Before it was too late, you had the chance to change and fix things. I'm no longer mad, but I can't live this way any longer. I deserve better. Her silence said a lot. I heard her steps going back to the guest room as she turned around and left. I didn't get it. I worked on packing up the last of her things instead and put them by the door. In the afternoon, she asked a friend to come get her. When she left, she didn't say goodbye. She just grabbed her bags and walked out the door. As I watched from the window as the car drove off, I felt a huge sense of relief. Even though the house was quiet, the silence felt different this time. It felt almost freeing. I began to take back my life over the next few weeks. I moved the furniture around, took down the wedding pictures, and gave away the things we bought together that I didn't need anymore. The house felt like mine again for the first time in years. It was a place where I could relax and start over. Friends started to call and ask how I was doing. I told them the truth. I felt better than I had in years. I got back in touch with people, went out more, and remembered what I loved. I felt like myself again little by little. When I was sitting on the back porch with a glass of wine one evening, watching the sun go down, I noticed something. The stress, anger and fatigue I had been carrying for a long time were gone. It was gone, and I felt peace I hadn't had in years. I was no longer just getting by. I was living. I was excited about the future for the first time in a long time.